What do you market?
Buildings.
That sounds boring. Buildings?
Well, no, cool buildings, like architecture.
Sorry, you don't need to justify yourself to me. You could just be like, yeah, it's boring, you prick.
One of the most common problems I see with the guys who I work with one-on-one is being too needy when approaching women, and this is something that I struggled with for years. Rather than approaching a woman because I wanted her, I would approach because I wanted her validation. I would put women on a pedestal. I would be overly nice out of a deep-rooted fear that if I said the wrong thing or took the wrong action, I would somehow lose value in the eyes of the feminine. And this held me back for years. I was so needy, I was so desperate for a woman's approval that I was never perceived as a sexual option because she couldn't respect me. Yeah, she could see that I couldn't respect myself. She could see that I prioritized her opinion of me over my own, and because she couldn't respect me, she couldn't get turned on by me. And you're probably experiencing something similar right now. Every time you approach a woman, she's not looking at you with lust. She's not desperate to rip off your clothes, and your interactions with the feminine never seem to go past that platonic chit chat. So in this video, I'm gonna share the 4 principles which have allowed me to kill that needy nice guy within and become the sort of guy who women actually wanna fuck with. 1, high intention, low attachment. The reason why we come across as needy when approaching women is because we place excess importance on a particular outcome. We become so attached to things going a certain way, so being liked, receiving approval, getting a phone number, that this excess importance creates an emotional imbalance and puts us into a state of lack. And we then approach women from this state of lack, hoping to get a result which then makes us feel whole. But this is the wrong energy to lead with, right? Rather than approaching women in order to get a result that makes us feel whole, we want to be operating from a place of wholeness before we approach that woman. So therefore, when we do approach, we don't need anything from her. I'm going to explain exactly how to do this in a moment, but first of all, I want you to understand the person who has the most cares the least, and he who is most prepared to walk away has all the power. Imagine you go into a store because you're interested in buying a new phone. And imagine a store assistant comes over to you and he's putting a lot of pressure on you to buy the latest model because he's scared about not hitting his monthly sales target and is terrified of getting in trouble and losing his job. Because he's placing excess importance on making the sale, it causes him to become attached to the sale. And since he's attached to the sale, he's actually less likely to make the sale because he's operating from a place of lack rather than from a place of wholeness. Now, if that exact same guy comes over to me in the phone store and he's like, hey, just to let you know, we've got the latest model. If you're interested in checking it out, just let me know. I'll be over there. Then I would be more inclined to buy the product because he's operating in a state of high intention, low attachment. The guy is making me aware that he wants the sale, so he's leading with intent, but the way he's conveying the message is, I want the sale, but I don't need it. It's exactly the same when we're approaching women. Like I tell you boys all the time, seduction is sales, and the way we make sales is by not being attached to making sales. As a thought experiment, imagine right now you had 10 absolute worldies in your phone who you could link up with tonight, who are desperate to go on a date with you, and then imagine how that would make you feel when interacting with new women. Imagine how carefree, imagine how non-needy, imagine how detached from outcome you would be. The energy you would be leading with is, I want you, but I don't need you. We're able to approach these women with full intent, right? So she knows exactly why we're there. It's like, hey, you're beautiful. I want to take you out on a date, but if for whatever reason you decide to decline my invitation, no problem. My cup is already full. I've come over here purely to give and purely because it pleases me as a man to do so. This is how we remove neediness. It's by operating from this place of abundance as opposed to scarcity. Now, you might be thinking, yeah, Kristian, that all sounds great, but right now, I am in a state of lack. Like, I don't have any women in my life, and this is causing me to be attached to a particular positive outcome. I get that. I was in that position myself. So let me explain exactly how I did it. 2, becoming super abundant. As many of you know, I started Daytime Cold Approach 4 years ago. At the time, I'd just come out of a long-term relationship. I had 0 women in my life, and I had no idea what I was doing.
My name's Kristian, 23 years old. I don't have a fucking clue what I'm doing right now. Like, this is relatively new to me, like approaching girls. This is me, man, doing stuff that makes him feel fulfilled, makes him feel scared and unsure of himself.
But what I started doing, despite not having any women in my life at the time, was acting as if I already did. So remember before when I gave you that thought experiment about imagining that you had 10 beautiful women in your phone who were desperate to see you? Well, that is exactly what I did. If you're familiar with the work of Neville Goddard, then he talked at length about assuming the state of the wish already fulfilled. What this means in plain fucking English is acting as if you already are in a state of abundance. Like, imagine somebody just wired you $30 million into your bank account, and tap into that feeling or those feelings. Like, imagine right now you looked at your online banking in your phone, $30 million right there, tax-free. Imagine the sensations associated with that state. Imagine how carefree, how abundant. Imagine all of the stress which would be alleviated from your life. Imagine the gratitude. Imagine how generous you would feel. And then once you've tapped into that state, you operate from that state as though the wish has already been fulfilled. I think when most people think about manifestation, they think that thinking is enough. No, thinking is the first step. Imagination is a precursor to creation. And as Leonardo da Vinci once said, I have been impressed with the urgency of doing. Knowing is not enough. We must apply. Being willing is not enough. We must do. Once we felt what it would feel like to be living as though our prayers had already been fulfilled, this then allows our actions to align with our ambitions. So now when we approach women, we operate from this state of assumed abundance. Understand, the mind can't distinguish between events which have been imagined and events which have really happened. And because the girl feels what you feel, she will go along with whatever state you transfer to her. Understand, perception is reality. As a man thinketh, so is he. And even if it's not true, we make it true by believing in it. 3, fulfillment beyond the feminine. If you want to completely capitulate your neediness when approaching women, then one of the most powerful principles I've found is having excitement in your life that isn't women. Understand, women want to be invited into an adventure. They don't want to be the adventure. This is especially true when you enter into a relationship with a woman. Like, I don't know about you, but I've lost myself in so many relationships during my early years because the relationship became my primary focus. But as David Data explains in The Way of the Superior Man, she doesn't want to be number one. If you want to have an incredible life with women, then you need a life beyond women. This applies when you're single, when you're going out there and approaching new women. I explain to my guys all the time, learn day game, don't become a day gamer. Far too many guys, especially guys who want to learn cold approach, make women their entire reason for being. They'll go to work, and when they're not working, they're going out, they're chasing women, they're cold approaching, they're going to the mall, trying to get their 10 sets. And yeah, this can be good for a sustained period, like having that immersion period. But the problem comes when this goes on for too long. 7, 8, 9 months in, guys are still parading around the pavements for 5 hours a day. And then if they get on dates with women, the women are like, hey, what do you do? They're like, I kind of just go to work and approach women in the shopping mall. So really practical, get busy, do things in your life that make you feel good, which don't involve women. Train like a savage at the gym, partake in combat sports, go on adventures, like go on trips with the boys, learn an instrument, learn a language. The more things that you do, the more fulfillment you find beyond the feminine. These things are going to allow you to start to feel more whole in yourself. So rather than looking towards women to complete you, it's like, no, I've got so much fulfillment in my life that these women who I'm approaching, I'm bringing them in to an already abundant lifestyle rather than making them my entire reason for being. Does that make sense? For me, true abundance is finding fulfillment in many things, always having things to look forward to, immersing ourselves in activities beyond the feminine, which make us feel whole. And that way, if you approach some women, the approaches don't go your way, or if you're messaging a few women back and forth and all of a sudden the conversations die, you don't get emotionally depleted. You don't become emotionally attached to the attention that you're getting from these women, because it's like, oh, this girl flaked, this approach didn't go that well, never mind. I'm about to go to the gym, I'm about to go on a trip with the boys, I'm gonna go and create an amazing piece of content for my personal brand, I'm gonna go home and do 2 hours of research on sales, I'm gonna go to a dance class where I can meet more women and learn how to actually dance and be cool and interested and hyper fuckable. If you had nothing going on in your life apart from these women who you were messaging, then your mind is gonna place excess importance on the attention that you're able to get from these women, and this will then intensify your level of attachment to these women. So do yourself a favor, find fulfillment beyond the feminine. And finally, character crucifixion. One of the most important lessons that I've learned is we don't have dating problems. We have personal problems which manifest themselves into dating problems. For example, if right now interactions with women are a rare occurrence because you're not putting yourself out there enough, because at your core you don't think you're worthy of receiving love from the feminine, then the rarity of these interactions means you're going to cling on to these interactions more. You're going to be more needy for a positive outcome because you don't yet know when your next opportunity is going to arise. Or maybe, like many of the guys who I work with, you are a chronic overthinker and you need constant reassurance from women. You need them to tell you that you're enough, you're valid, you're worthy of their attention. And because of this, because you're overthinking, thinking way too many steps ahead and experiencing failure in advance, it makes you more needy for the women's approval. Or maybe you have such a deep, ingrained fear of being rejected that it causes you to desperately cling on to any opportunity, destroying that needy, supplicating, nice guy within. It's not about learning any tricks or lines or pickup techniques. It's about transforming who you are at your very core. When guys work with me one-on-one, they think that all I'm going to be doing is teaching them the technical side of seduction. You know, how to properly approach, how to stand, how to carry themselves with conviction, how to speak with a more commanding voice. And yeah, I help my guys with all of these things, but the technical side makes up about 3% of your overall approach. As soon as guys start working with me, they quickly learn it's not what you say, it's not how you say it, it's who you are when you say it.
Genuinely, I just told Kristian I had one of the best months of my life. I just recently had one of the best months of my life, and I'm like, I know for a fact, if I hadn't spent that money, I wouldn't have turned around physically and metaphorically and took the action I've recently took that has had such a ripple effect in my life that I called you the other day, or I left you a message, And I said, mate, I'm sat here and I could cry. I literally, I'm so happy because I'm like, I feel like I'm awake. Because it hurt, I was forced into action to push past this self-imprisonment.
You can have all of the tools, but if you haven't become the version of yourself who can actually use these tools, then it's like buying a Ferrari but not knowing how to drive it. Understand, I'm not teaching you how cold approach works. I am teaching you how you can become the version of yourself who cold approach can work for. And this requires a complete overhaul of your current character. It's not chasing a goal, it's chasing an identity. It's understanding that in order for you to attract the women that you want, then you must metaphorically crucify this current version of yourself and become the version of you who is capable of achieving those things. And if you want to learn exactly how to do this, if you want a deep, powerful, and most importantly, practical blueprint, a blueprint which I've personally used to rewire my entire internal system and become the most fuckable version of myself internally and externally, then you can download my free online course right now and access the module titled Mindset Mastery. Love ya!